Headlines describing Clifton Powell's sentence as final are misleading. Powell was never criminally charged or convicted of anything related to the 2011 allegation that follows. What actually happened was a civil lawsuit, one that ended in his favor. This script tells that story accurately, without borrowing the clickbait framing that implies a criminal outcome. Clifton Powell has been on your screen for more than 40 years, even if you've never learned his name. He's the man who made you laugh as Pinky in Next Friday. He's the quietly devastating presence in Menace II Society. He's Jeff Brown, Ray Charles's road manager, standing next to Jamie Foxx in one of the most celebrated biopics of the 2000s. Across more than 100 film and television credits, Powell built one of the most durable character-actor careers in black cinema. But Powell's story is also one of the clearest examples of how an unproven accusation can follow a public figure for years, long after the courts have moved on. This is his career, his legal fight, and what he's said about the price both exacted. Clifton Powell was born March 16, 1956, in Washington, D.C., and grew up in the Mayfair Mansions neighborhood in Northeast D.C. He attended DeMatha High School before transferring to St. Anthony's, and his early exposure to the arts came through a youth training program before he went on to study performing arts at Emerson College in Boston. It took nearly 2 decades of persistence before Hollywood noticed him. Powell landed his first credited role in the 1981 television movie Ephraim McDowell's Kentucky Ride, followed by his film debut in Alphabet City in 1984. Small parts and television guest spots followed for most of the decade. The breakthrough came in 1993, when Powell was cast as Chauncey in the Hughes brothers' Menace II Society, a searing portrait of life in South-Central Los Angeles that became one of the defining films of the hood classic era. Powell's performance, as a man whose jealousy leads him to betray his closest friends, established him as an actor who could bring real menace and complexity to the screen. From there, the range only widened. He appeared in Dead Presidents, 1995, alongside a cast of Hughes brothers regulars, in the Eddie Murphy vehicle Vampire in Brooklyn, a production he left after alleging he experienced racist treatment from a crew member, a claim that, according to Wikipedia's sourced account of the incident, the film's producers did not act on, and in Why Do Fools Fall in Love and Rush Hour, both released in 1998. By the turn of the millennium, Powell had become inseparable from a very different kind of role. As Pinky, the fast-talking, endlessly quotable pimp in Next Friday, 2000, and its sequel Friday After Next, 2002, he became a fan-favorite comedic presence, proving he could pivot from urban drama to broad comedy without missing a beat. That versatility reached its high point in 2004. Powell played Jeff Brown, Ray Charles's longtime road manager, in Taylor Hackford's Oscar-winning biopic Ray. The performance, delivered alongside Jamie Foxx's now legendary turn as Charles, earned Powell an NAACP Image Award nomination for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Motion Picture, the most significant formal recognition of his career. That same year, Powell also lent his voice to Big Smoke, one of the most memorable characters in the video game Grand Theft Auto, San Andreas, introducing him to an entirely new generation of fans who may never have set foot in a movie theater. By most counts, Powell has now appeared in more than 200 film and television projects, everything from Norbit to the Boondocks to the Bounce TV drama Saints and Sinners, where he played the lead antagonist. Few actors of any background can claim a filmography with that kind of range and longevity. In August 2011, an encounter in a New Orleans hotel room set off a legal saga that would follow Powell for years. According to court filings, a woman using the pseudonym Keontae Myers, a cocktail waitress at Harrah's Casino who said she had known Powell for roughly 2 years, alleged that a sexual encounter with Powell that began consensually turned violent when she asked him to stop and he did not. Myers reported the incident to New Orleans police in 2011. According to multiple contemporaneous news reports, including AFRO and IB Times UK, that police investigation was closed without charges being filed, citing a lack of evidence. Powell was never arrested and never faced a criminal charge over the allegation. That distinction matters, because what followed was a civil lawsuit, not a criminal case. In 2012, Myers filed a federal civil suit against Powell in the Eastern District of Louisiana, seeking more than $75,000 in damages for assault, battery, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Powell, through a representative, denied the allegations and said he intended to fight the case. What happened next is where Powell's account of collateral damage becomes most vivid, and where the case took an unusual procedural path. Powell has said his original attorney mishandled his defense. Because Powell did not formally respond to the lawsuit in time, the court entered a default judgment against him in the amount of roughly $150,000 in damages plus medical expenses, a judgment based on the plaintiff's uncontested claims, not a factual finding after trial. That default judgment sat on the record for years. But in early 2017, Powell, with new representation, successfully moved to have it vacated. According to reporting from the Jasmine Brand and Bossip, U.S. District Judge Sarah S. Vance found that Powell had not been properly served with the original lawsuit, and that inconsistencies had emerged in the plaintiff's account. Notably, the lead New Orleans police detective on the original criminal investigation, Detective Damita Williams, stated in a sworn affidavit that she found the sexual assault claim to be unfounded after questioning the accuser directly. With the default judgment thrown out, the underlying civil case continued for another year. In January 2018, the federal court dismissed the remaining claims in the litigation. Court records show the judge also dismissed Powell's own counterclaims against Myers for defamation and emotional distress on procedural grounds, finding they had been filed too late under Louisiana's statute of limitations. In other words, both sides' claims against each other were closed out, with no finding of liability against Powell and no compensation awarded to either party. Powell spoke about the ordeal publicly around this time, telling TMZ that the 4-year civil case had been thrown out despite what he described as significant damage to his career and reputation along the way. This is the part of Powell's story that resonates far beyond the specifics of one lawsuit. An accusation, even one that results in no criminal charge and no civil liability, can still cost a public figure real, lasting professional ground. Powell has spoken candidly in interviews about roles that dried up and opportunities that quietly disappeared once his name became associated with the allegation, even though the criminal investigation had already been closed for lack of evidence years earlier. That is the uncomfortable truth at the center of Powell's experience. Reputational damage in the entertainment industry doesn't wait for a verdict. It's why some observers have described Powell's ordeal as a lesson in how public perception can function almost like a sentence of its own, not a legal one, but a professional and social one, imposed well before any court reaches a conclusion, and in Powell's case, one that persisted even after the court sided with him. Separate from the legal saga, Powell has been an outspoken voice on colorism within Hollywood casting, a topic he's addressed in multiple interviews over the years, including with outlets like the Jasmine Brand. Powell has described being passed over for roles specifically because of his darker skin tone, recalling that industry decision-makers told him directly that he was too dark for certain parts. That dynamic, Powell has argued, created a contradiction in how he was used as an actor, readily cast as an intimidating or villainous figure, but rarely considered for roles built around warmth, romance, or vulnerability, the kinds of parts more often reserved for lighter-skinned performers under an industry standard that has long privileged proximity to Eurocentric beauty norms. It's a critique that echoes a broader, well-documented conversation about colorism in casting that many black actors and directors have raised for decades. Powell has also spoken about solidarity within the black entertainment community, criticizing public infighting between black artists in mainstream press as counterproductive to an industry that, in his view, already presented enough obstacles. His NAACP Image Award nomination for Ray stands out in this context, not just as a career highlight, but as a moment of formal recognition in an industry Powell has said too often overlooked performers who looked like him. Powell's path to Hollywood began with instability. He was raised in southeast Washington, D.C., and has said his mother died when he was 4 years old, leaving him to be raised by a father who struggled with alcoholism in a neighborhood where the odds for young black men were often stacked against them. His adult life brought its own turbulence. Powell married Kimberly Powell, and the couple built a family together during the height of his acting career. Court records show Kimberly Powell filed for divorce in Los Angeles County in 2008. In later interviews, including conversations on Vlad TV, Powell has spoken with striking candor about the fallout, describing the divorce as costing him roughly $10 million and calling the marriage the biggest mistake of his life. He has also said that in the years after, he experienced homelessness in his 50s, a period he's described as one of the lowest points of his adult life. Powell has additionally discussed struggling with gambling during difficult financial stretches, describing how those habits compounded the strain he was already under. And he has expressed regret about the toll his career took on his relationship with his children, acknowledging in interviews that the demands of constant travel and long shooting schedules kept him away from home more than he now wishes had been the case. What comes through in these interviews isn't a man asking for sympathy so much as one being unusually direct about the gap between a visible, successful career and a much harder personal reality behind it, the kind of contrast that, as Powell himself has suggested, likely made him more vulnerable when the 2011 allegation and the years of litigation that followed arrived. There was no final criminal sentence in Clifton Powell's story, because there was never a criminal case to sentence him on. What there was, instead, was a nearly decade-long civil dispute that ended with the underlying claims against him dismissed, his own countersuit dismissed on a technicality, and a career that had already absorbed years of professional fallout from an allegation the original police investigation had found insufficient to support. Powell's more than 40 years in the industry, his willingness to speak openly about colorism, and his candor about his personal struggles all sit alongside that legal history, not eclipsed by it, and not excused by it, but part of a fuller picture than a clickbait headline can hold. For an actor who built a career playing men shaped by hard circumstances, Powell's own life has, by his own account, been shaped by plenty of hard circumstances too.